Alright guys, can you hear me? Are we back? We had a little bit of technical difficulty. When it rains it pours. I've got USB problem with my computer that I think is triggering these like occasional disconnects. Then it resets my microphone and I have to fix that too. So it's just a chain reaction. Send you game in my inbox. Sumihara, I don't know, you're getting kind of late with these games lately. Alright, let's see here. What am I doing? Sumager. We're loud and clear. I feel very sleepy tonight and the coffee didn't help. That was some weak coffee. You sent me some weak coffee, Mr. Coffee. Alright. Don't have a lot of time. We've got Ripun Bansal, is that right? Flair, Jim, Yabadis, and Sumihara, plus Kakatiri. I'm going to open the window here. I feel like I need some oxygen. My COVID is still causing like fatigue. Oxygen will help. We need some oxygen. We were in the second week COVID fatigue stage. So I've got 6 game submissions for tonight's stream. Jim, good to see you. I've got, are we in the right page here? Guys, we're doing analysis. Please support the stream if you can. We're doing analysis from subscriber games. Again, the list includes Ripun, Asterbait, Jim, Yabadis, Sumihara, and Kakatiri. I thought I was completely over COVID, as I said yesterday, and it's just like every night when it's like around 7 o'clock, I start to feel like I need to go to sleep. Alright, maybe a beer will help. Jim, did you have it as well? Like my obvious symptoms went away, but I'm just feeling like tired now for no reason. Alright, it looks like everybody's gonna get it. It's almost impossible to like evade Omicron. I guess we'll start where... No, good. We'll start with game 1. Ripun Bansal submitted a game against me. Oh, I've got two good games. 2 of my own games. Oxygen mask. I need a oxygen tank. No, I just feel kind of sleepy. Anyway, alright, we're going to start this game against me. He always submits these games against me. Wow, your boss died from not getting vaccinated. Alright, Ripun. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6. This is his game against me. The latest... I'm very frustrated with this variation. Bishop C4, Bishop C5. I was actually thinking out loud, maybe it's better for black to play for a win with knight F6. Actually, I said this to Yabatis. I mean, I know that it's not pleasant to play against this knight G5 variation, but I mean, if we want to win with black, maybe we really ought to go for this. Man. Maybe we ought to try knight F6. So bishop C5, C3, knight F6, and then D4. Of course, this is like the main line. Right. No, another idea. Yeah, I agree about this. Like, the variation, this variation with B5 might be black's best, like, practical try. I mean, if you want to play for the initiative, this is actually what scientist and national master, he's a really accredited scientist, Dana McKenzie, a U.S. national master who did a lot of videos for our site chesslecture.com. He actually recommends this in a series for our website. I never watched those videos, to be honest, because I don't really include this in my repertoire, but a bunch of people said they were good. And I just don't have time to watch every video that's posted on Chess Lecture. This this might be better than doing knight A5 objectively. The main line goes like B5, bishop F1. First of all, most people can't even find that variation. And then knight to D4, C3, and then you have to play knight takes D5, C takes D4, queen takes G5, check, king D8, and that's like the starting position for this line. I mean, it's funny, there's no games like, the most recent game is 2017. I don't know, how does white, white doesn't have to play knight G5, obviously, but that's the only move I'm really afraid of, to be honest. Anyway, okay, there's a problem here, though. How do we play for a win here after knight F6? This is just annoying. Now, like, there's no way back. Like, you have to play D5, and here, Ripun plays bishop B5, but Morales beat me with bishop E2. So like both of these moves are okay for white, and like annoying. This is the best way to play the Joker piano. The only good way to play the Joker piano. But from black's perspective, it's just like virtually impossible to play for a win. I don't like it. I'm going to start playing the two knights defense, honestly. This is just annoying. It's kind of like the Scotch Gambit. Jim, thank you. Donating 1,000 bits. You submitted the game I had 10 times same position. It's almost winning Caro endgame. Jim donated 1,000 bits to the stream. It's been so long since he's been here. He's making up for lost time. Really appreciate it. I know things have been tough. You weren't working for a long time. Glad you could get back to work. Sorry about your boss. Very appreciative. Thank you. So I don't know which one is best, bishop B5 or bishop E2. But now we have to play knight E4. Can we play the Bronstein idea here? Abramovich did this. Wow. Dude, he just died. Speaking of people who died. Bosco Abramovich just passed away like a month ago. I never knew him. Very famous, like, Serbian grandmaster. I mean, it works in the Scotch Gambit, but it's not quite the same. I mean, there's a huge problem here. Our bishop on c5 is getting hit with tempo. Yeah. You saw him... Yeah, he looked his age. I mean, I saw some photo. I never met him. I never played in the same tournament. C takes d4. So we lose a tempo with the bishop here. That doesn't seem right. No, you have to play knight e4, cd4, and then like bishop e4 check is lame. Here, he drinking beer. Now you're gonna scare me. I'm drinking beer. It might be fatal. All right. I mean, bishop e5 seems more aggressive than bishop e2. That's also a good move, though. Here, here. And now he's supposed to play h3 first. That's the Yababa attack. Stopping bishop g4. There's nothing wrong with knight c3. That seems to be the main line. White castles. So here, technically, I could have played bishop g4. Maybe that's why h3 is a better move order for white. I should play bishop g4 if I'm given the chance. Now I castled and he played h3, so we transposed back. And now I had a previous game with f6, which Ripon had against Izoria. We already analyzed Ripon's earlier game against Grandmaster Izoria a couple weeks ago or a month ago, where Izoria was black. He played f6, just like the same position. This is like a main line. f5 doesn't destroy white's center, so I'm not sure about that. So I decided to try something different with this bishop e6. It doesn't do anything about white's center, though. You know, all it does is reinforce d5. So if he plays like knight c3, I can just let him take and not have to worry about this diagonal. But I mean, it still doesn't do anything, you know, effectively. Here, and now f6. And like, surprisingly, there's no games from this position. It looks like it's slightly inaccurate to put the bishop on e6. So you just have to do the Azoria with f6. It looks like this is basically the only way. Knight c3, f takes e5, bishop takes c6, b takes c, knight takes e5. No, here, here, check. Wow, queen d5. I thought we looked at this. It looks like black is okay. So in the future, I'm just going to have to play it like this. This bishop e6 is too passive. Now knight c3, f6, bishop e3, which is the best move. Interestingly, no games from this position. And he plays bishop e3. Reinforcing his center. Now I took, but I said during the stream, was it in this game or in a very similar position, I had knight e7. This is the best chance. Maybe I talked about it during the game. I mean, I expected White to come back. Maybe it was the game against Morales. I don't remember. No, that was different because his bishop was on e2. This knight coming back to e7. And I play f5. But now I don't have any way to really destroy his pawns except for c5. It just doesn't seem like black can equalize. Not after bishop e6, anyway. So this is bad. Takes, 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 and now takes. and then you got control of the e5 square. I mean, it's like a model Nimzovich position for white. I played queen e8. This is more active here because I'm trying to protect this pawn, but it's a passive way to go about it, and I have nowhere to go on the diagonal. So queen f6 would be better. Defending this pawn indirectly, you know, like bishop takes h3. And you've also got queen g6. It also, I guess, gives you some c5. If white just does a random move, you could play c5 and get in the break against the center. Because his knight is supported by the d4 pawn. So queen f6 is definitely an improvement. Queen e8 wasn't great. Now a4, I dropped a bishop against him in a previous game. I played a5. Now queen c2. At this point, it doesn't seem clear if white has a plan. Maybe this? That doesn't seem great. Maybe f4, f5. I think that would be his best shot, you know, to get an f4, f5. Okay, can I play like bishop f5 then? Yeah. So I'm not really sure what his plan is in this position. I mean, perhaps white should play something crazy like g4. What do you guys think? g4. This rook could come across like laterally. One of my ideas was to play c5 at some point and try to break out. Well, the problem with f4 though is that I can go here. Once he commits to f4, I can try to wiggle my bishop into e4. That's why I'm suggesting g4. Although the computer likes g4. Yeah. Wow. You could play f3. It's dropping now. It's just playing like some flexible move, rook e1, which he did soon. You don't have to play like rook e1 right away. Queen c2 is okay, but it gives me bishop f5 here. This is sort of a stupid waiting move. And now I don't have any squares. He did give me that square. I shouldn't say that I don't have any squares. I have exactly that one square. Or alternatively c8, but that allows that. So, you know, now this bishop move looks stupid. He has like knight takes c6, winning a pawn with tempo. I just really did the worst possible thing moving that bishop. I don't think he should be worried about bishop takes h3. But ironically, later it was an idea. No, bishop a7 was maybe my worst move of the game. Total loss of time. Now king h2. I'm in very bad time pressure, so I play king h8. And I mean, he could even do like g4, honestly. I don't know. There might be some danger. Takes. I actually have this. Boom. 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 Oof. Does that seriously work? I'm not even sure like what I'm threatening here, but I guess rook takes h3 is pretty good. Queen h3. Rook h3 is the immediate threat. Yeah, this is winning. Wow. He's got to be careful. g4 doesn't work. Yeah, I can't say I saw that. But I wasted a tempo there and then back. And now bishop f5. And I was actually happy to trade queens I'm more likely to not like blunder something. And one pawn down with the bishop pair is maybe salvageable here. No, so I think he should be trying to use his kingside majority. His winning plan is something like f4, f5. Morales would really know what he's doing here. And he quickly allowed this pin. The white is still better. And now this looks like a blunder. So white just has to get out of the pin. And I figure I'm still in trouble. But objectively, like, takes. Black has good chances to hold a draw here. But no guarantees. Honestly, I don't know if I should take the knight or not. Computer still gives white +2. Wow. I'm down one pawn and it's +2. That's disheartening. Now he just went crazy with going for time. And he gets that pawn. Maybe I could consider taking with the D pawn. And white's still got winning chances. But he gave me a draw here. It's got to be like +1.5. In reality, it's even more. Wow. Excellent winning chances. If there's no A pawns on the board, I mean, probably black can hold it. But it looks really tough. With so many pawns still on the board. So anyway, that was a good game by Ripun. I'm lucky to get a draw there from a clearly worse position. Flair against Asterbait is our second game. Thanks, Jim, again for donating 1,000 bits to the stream. Mr. Coffee and Move 11 donated some gift subs earlier this week. Guys, don't forget to subscribe. B-Jock, thanks for being a subscriber. I don't know what you were talking about with King G1. In that other variation where I sacked a rook. Okay, onward and upward. This is Flair versus Asterbait. Flair played the same opening he played against me. It was Alpin Sicilian. Office Space says you need to wear Flair. Flannel or Flair? Flair, the other Flair. Ric Flair. Roger LaFlair. So, yeah, I mean, C3 Sicilian is good, as much as I hate to admit it. I had the same variation with Flair. You know, it's funny, I don't think he played this move order against me. Like, technically, white's supposed to play d4 on the first move, but I guess there's nothing really wrong with knight f3. Asterbait goes g6, and now this very strange move, bishop b5 check. So, I think we need to ask ourselves, Flair also successfully drew me in a simul the other day with this type of move. We need to ask ourselves, why is this not a good move? Anybody? Somebody raise your hand. Can anybody explain to me why this is not a good move? Uber Driver usually has a lot of answers. Asterbait, because of Queen d7. Smart ass. No, I mean, I'm talking about, like, why is bishop b5 check not a very good move from a strategic standpoint, you know? Some people say standpoint. What's a standpoint? From the strategic standpoint, Standpoint. Why is it in a good mood? I'm not in a good mood. Why isn't a good move? Can anybody think like strategically? Giving black free development. Alright, I think that's a reasonable argument. Like you could say, okay, giving black free development. Yes and no. I mean, white's also getting development, right? I go here. If you trade it, I get ahead in development. Well, let's say you don't. Let's say, you do, I don't know, knight a3 or queen e2 or something. A6 is not a constructive move. What I wanted to get at was something else. It's this. What strikes me about the position is this. Does anybody get what I'm trying to say here? I mean, he has 5 out of 7 pawns on dark squares. When you're basically like trading your good bishop, essentially. See above. Yeah, I like white squares when you have pawns on dark squares. Exactly. Uber driver got the answer. Yeah, this is right. I mean, you got the opposite complex is white squares, right? I mean, it's not the most stark example of like trading your good bishop for a bad bishop, but it's not really good. So I think this is a bad move in most cases in the C3 Sicilian, because fundamentally you're playing a structure where your pawns are on dark squares. Exactly. Good job. Good job, Uber driver. The other thing is like trading pieces in general, is certainly not going to help white in any kind of scenario where he like is trying to attack or he has an IQP, say. Alright, so bishop e5 check, not great. I played bishop d7 in an analogous position, but Astrobate has a different take on the situation, knight c6. I mean, honestly, like, the most aggressive move of all would probably be, in a way, like knight to d7, just very arrogantly saying, okay, I'm not even gonna like let you have anything. Alright. Anyway, knight c6. What concerns me here is that white is a little bit ahead in development now, and we've got a live pin. So, black's king side is not developed. I kind of prefer bishop d7 getting developed. Engine doesn't agree. The engine actually likes... Well, let's run it a little deeper. Now it's like coming around to my way of thinking. But basically Stockfish thinks like these moves are almost equal. Knight c6 is interesting. So should white go for d4? He can't, or what? Alright, there's no rush. He doesn't have to play it right away. If d4 threatening like c4, not quite yet. So he plays castles, and now Astrobate plays bishop g4. Very resolute move. You're guaranteed to double these pawns, but black's king is still in the center of the board. Now white played bishop e2. I mean, this is a very... Bishops is hanging. White has some interesting tries here. But bishop e2 can't be right. I mean, I think that white can allow the doubling of pawns for the sake of development. I mean, for example, d4. Bishop takes f3. I mean, even queen f3, pawn f3, pawn takes d4. Black is way behind in development here. So he's got to be equal, but not necessarily better. Computer thinks he's even slightly better, but it's not that clear. I just don't think that white should retreat. Also interesting is maybe something like queen a4, bishop f3, pawn f3. Queen f3 looks very greedy. I mean, I don't know what's going on here. Now you have perpetual check. Yeah. What about just h3, costing time but forcing black to do this? I'm curious what the computer says. It wants to play bishop e2. Wow. But that's kind of an admission of defeat. Still, I mean, if black plays bishop takes f3, it looks like white benefited. Now Asterby makes a good decision, I think. Not to give up your bishop. His bishop is so strong. Yeah, I mean, computer thought that white was better. Now it's white that has the strong unopposed bishop. So bishop f5 makes a lot of sense. Nothing special white can do. There's also the control of this square. And now what he does is extremely passive. I mean, honestly, like, white would be better off playing d4. I mean, like, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn. Black's king is totally open here. Yeah, Uber Driver, I did that in my second ever tournament. It wasn't a really good idea. Bishop takes b1. It is played sometimes, though. Yeah, I like the fact that bishop takes b1. In all seriousness, you know, this might be a good move in this position. Not to take the pawn necessarily, but I mean, it does steal white's control of those squares away. You could try taking the pawn, but it feels kind of greedy to me. I would just like develop, you know, and hope to win this pawn later. Yeah, that's a totally legit move. But this is really passive. d3. And now Asterby just like lost his mind. Yeah, if you play queen takes a2, you lose control of d5, like the runaway IQP pawn. It's a disaster. Uber Driver's being sarcastic a lot. I think it's hard to judge. Fred Rogers. What was his name? Fred Wilson. Fred Wilson, the bookseller master from Fred Reinfeld. I thought you were talking about Fred Wilson. Man, d3 is passive. But Asterbate, you have no qualms about just moving the same piece twice here at move 9. I'm not on a first name basis. I forgot we're on a first name basis with Fred. Fred played in the 1947 U.S. Championship. Asterby, you need to develop your pieces. So knight f6 is just only. They won't run away. I mean, you could play like rook d8. Don't castle queenside. Your king is too open there. It looks like knight f6 is like forced. This is not a tough position. You don't have any other options. I mean, your only good move is like literally knight f6. e5, I'm not loving it because it like kind of weakens the white squares and it blocks your bishop. It does clamp down. You know, probably e5 is not that bad, but knight f6 is way better. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the openings or the analysis engine, it's starting to like e5. Wow. White's position is so passive that this is actually good. Rook d8, better than castling queenside. But I would just play knight f6. This is wrong. You're not developing. And now? You got your bishop to the sneaky diagonal. Oh, I think I've seen this game before. I was expecting f4 or d4 from white. He could play f4, for example. It kind of blocks the bishop in. It's not good positionally. I still thought maybe d4. I mean, what happens if black's king gets stranded in the center? For example. Like, people... I just want to play chess. Welcome. People are way too materialistic. What if white tries to sacrifice a pawn here, you know, to liven up his chances? Let's bring a little bit of life to the game, you know? What if we play d4? Get the pieces out, you know? What's Asterbate going to do? Takes, and now what's he going to do? Our pieces are jumping out. You know, there's also bishop b5 check. There's queen a4 check in some lines. All the white pieces can just jump out into the board. I mean, this is a great pawn sack. Total compensation. White's better. Oh shit. See, that's what happens when you play knight e5. All because Asterbate played knight e5. He went from better to worse in one move. So white actually should have played d4 directly. This is much stronger. The king can go to g7 if it needs to. Yeah, I know. Well, that's what I was going to suggest in this variation. Knight e5, bishop f5, d4, takes. You know, here. I would see something like check. Yeah, you go to f8, and you're you know, in the end game you're fine. You're fine, absolutely, with your king going to g7. But before the end game, the gods have placed the middle game. But I mean, definitely black should go for the trade of queens if he can get it. But I mean, white doesn't have any guarantee he has to trade queens like this, for example. This is like totally... I'm not sure what's going on here. So, bishop c7, Flair plays too fast. Asterbate wastes another tempo. And now, you know, we can all see what he's doing. Everyone saw bishop a5 except for you. My favorite comment from Alexander Ivanov. Obviously, the plan is not bishop a5. I mean, white's move is so atrocious. He played c4. That might be like the worst move, one of the worst moves on the board that doesn't drop a piece. Obviously, c4 is okay if you're guaranteed to get in d4, but he's missing the point. I was surprised Asterbate didn't play this. I mean, you're more active here, and you're also on the e3 bishop, so f4 is not even an option. He would have to play g3. Maybe Asterbate saw this, though. Maybe his idea was, here he has nowhere to go where he can guard the bishop, so after bishop h3, here. mean, white could sack the exchange. He's losing a whole rook, though. Even this is bad. Yeah, this was just a really bad game by Flair. He was playing too fast. Actually, Asterbait was playing too fast, too. And he just hangs mate. I mean, g3 drops h3, but here you have f4. f4 is not a really good move for white, strategically speaking. Now I guess rook d8, probably the lesser of the evils. Keep control of the d4 square. If you play knight f6, I mean, white can play d4 and kind of bust out. But even that might not be good, though. Like takes, or bishop b6. Black is like winning here. There are too many weaknesses. Yeah, it was a poorly played game, guys. Queen h2 mate. Alright. Not a good game, but instructive. Gonna submit the game from Kakatiri. Shatiri. Ninja Yamir is challenging me to 3+2, but we're not doing that today. No challenges today, just game analysis. My COVID brain doesn't play Blitz in the evening anymore. Alright. We've got Kakatiri. Ooh, here. Mr. Alright. We just go to his study. Kakatiri's first over the board game. The motion gun. He had a study that cannabis blocks COVID. Drinking your own urine is much cheaper. And it's like recycling. You're not contributing to carbon being released into the atmosphere. That'll go over. That's probably the cannabis. It's a cannabis industry. Fake news. I'll have to ask my friend who has a cannabis farm if that's true. Can you imagine if there was like a major... Imagine if there was like a major health pandemic and then it just turned out that like cannabis was the only cure, but no one realized in time, so after like a week, like the only survivors of the zombie apocalypse were like a bunch of potheads just wandering around. That would be kind of like ironic. Alright. This is actually Kakatiri's first tournament game over the board. I think he has to be black, because he plays the Caro. I'm assuming he's black. White resigns, ... It is a great movie, a zombie movie idea. Global pandemic, and cannabis is the only cure. The potheads are only like slightly more intelligible than the zombies. It's really hard to tell them apart in some extreme cases. Alright, we're playing the Caro Kann, knight f3, d5, knight c3. This two knights variation kind of became very topical in the last 10 years. But honestly, I don't know. It's nothing special for white. There's a bunch of solutions. We were playing the pawn takes pawn most lately. I'm kind of surprised Kakatiri didn't go for this because no, Because he likes, I think he was playing the E takes F variation, so you can do this, like, one of the simplest solutions is just do the E-E-F Caro-Kann anyway, you know. There is a problem here, though. I mean, Queen E2. And I don't think that black can fully equalize in this line, so it looks like black should try this takes 97. But anyways, and there's also knight f6, which is really complex. The e5, knight e4. This was always like, probably Uber driver knows, because he's a big Fischer and historical chess fan. Fischer beat Friedrich Olofsson in this line, and the line was always under a cloud. Because of the Fischer Friedrich Olofsson game. Basically, knight e2, queen b6, d4, c5, d takes c5, I think. Isn't that right? After e6, knight fg1. This started trending now, knight g3. But I don't know. Anyway, that's not the game. That variation got the most press in the last years. But Kakatiri played the classical variation. I don't know what it's really called. It's called the Mindeno variation. What's up, Schieberspieler? We get some Caro-Kann insights from Schieberspieler. Well, anyway, like bishop g4 is standard Horvath Yoji style. Karpov probably played it this way. h3, and now bishop h5 is very risky. So as always, it's better safe than sorry. Bishop takes f3. By the way, h3 is just one of like 10 moves in this position. White has a ridiculous number of candidate moves here. d3, d4, h3, bishop e2, a3. It's just, you know, pawn takes pawn. Karpov had his castling with rook moment. With Nepo? Oh, I didn't know that. You mean he did like a Russian street player castles? He like grabbed his rook first? Are you serious? That's like... that's what the coffee house Russian immigrants always used to do when they would like come to the US in the 90s. You would always see the old man in the park picking up his rook first. You knew he was like some coffee house player from Russia. That's funny. Obviously Karpov knows the rules. I mean, that's pretty weird. Oh, you mean like he picked up his rook? You mean he picked up his rook, it was a blunder. He was gonna move the rook. Oh, he did like a take back. Thanks, Schieberspieler. Entertaining. Yeah, I was gonna say Karpov knows you're supposed to touch the king first when you castle. FIDE made that like an official rule at some point. So anyway, bishop g4. Thank you for that entertaining little tidbit, Schieberspieler. I didn't realize about that. That probably happened when I was like in hibernation. Bishop f3. This is very risky. Bishop h5. Extremely dangerous. Take, g4. Or bishop e5 check and then g4. This line is definitely... I mean, you know, maybe it's playable, but you've got to be very careful. So, this is recommended. Is this one of those Bronstein captures, like G takes? I imagine there's nothing wrong with that. Excuse me. I think it was a Bronstein move, taking with the G pawn. Someone's gonna claim Tal did it, but I thought that was Bronstein's invention. All right. Maybe there was a Tal game. Queen takes f3, e6, and now white has again like 800 moves in this position. Yeah, strategically, black wants to put all his pawns on light squares. He gave up the light square bishop. You know, it's like, is the glass half full or half empty, Uber driver? I would say, strategically, black wants to put his pawns on white squares since he has a dark square bishop. Does that make me more of an optimist? I mean, I just look at it like as a teacher. I like to see that, you know, as a person who's like teaching chess. So my pawns are controlling the white squares, and my dark square bishop is the guardian on the dark squares. But it's interesting the way you say it, you know. But I feel like this is a defining reason. Whether you have a white square bishop isn't that big a deal. You obviously don't want one blocked inside your pawn chain. So d4, yeah, this is like an aggressive move. d3 is safer. There's bishop e2. There's like g3, g4. Probably g4 is a move. A3. I mean, every legal move is possible here, pretty much. d4 is kind of aggressive because the pawn, you know, this pawn becomes dangerous. I think Alexander Ivanov played this against Hurtayan once, and like tried to sack his d pawn. Did I ever do that against you, Schieberspieler? Didn't we have a game where I like tried to sack? Oh, that was a different line. It was probably the Boleslavsky variation. Ivanov played this. You know, this is a variation where you obviously there's some high level games too. I mean, you could try to sacrifice the pawn. Schieberspieler would snap that pawn. You know, he would snap that pawn so fast you didn't even see it leave the board. It's funny that you say that about not blocking the light square bishop. That's true. But you're going to block one of your bishops no matter what eventually. I mean, alright, so what I want to do is get to this, like, you know, this discussion point about that pawn. The pawn is more of a liability for white. But I think, like, the Caro-Kann, the problem is these kind of Caro-Kann Scandinavian positions. The bishop pair is actually really not that easy to use because the dark square bishop isn't so great. I mean, it's pawn there, pawn there, pawn there. You still have 3 pawns on dark squares, and the bishop's only real scope is on this diagonal. You see a lot of Scandinavian positions where like this type of thing happens, and that bishop is blocked like that. Just hypothetically, I'm talking, you know. The point is, like, white has a bishop pair. You could say on a theoretical level, like, white is just clearly better. White has the bishop pair. Automatic advantage. White is hugely better. It's not that easy, you know, in these kind of Caro-Kann scenarios. This bishop isn't guaranteed to be good. Yeah, I agree, the white square bishop a little better. So he just played 97 here. So the main move is Schieberspieler style. Queen takes e4, knight f6, and then queen d3. Knight a6, a3. Following Dominguez versus Ivanchuk. I mean, see how white's kind of tied down to that pawn on d4? Black has some problems too. I mean, white's really hoping for an endgame where those 2 bishops can be some slight advantage. So knight d7. Okay, I've always played bishop. Was it bishop b4 here? Doesn't seem right. I don't know, for some reason I thought this was a move. There's almost no games. This move actually has a decent score. Knight f6 first. Obviously, it's like a totally different story if white plays d3. A totally different position. Fischer had lost 2 games. He lost 2 games against Kyrgios in the Caro-Kann in this line, which is really funny. Both went along the same lines where he had a bad white square bishop, and Kyrgios like killed him. He almost like killed him the same way twice. It was very strange. Kyrgios was like able to trade the dark square bishops later on. I always thought that was weird, you know. Fischer literally scared Kyrgios out of playing the black side of the Roy Lopez, and then lost in the Caro-Kann anyway. So d4, knight d7. Yeah, I don't know. What is the best move for black here? Knight f6. So the problem with knight f6 is obviously if e5, we go back here. We're threatening c5 with good counterplay against the white center. So white mostly plays this, keeping the tension. Yeah, I guess I just have to admit I'm confusing my variations, you know. I'm actually finding myself like getting it confused with the fantasy variation. I'm thinking about this position and thinking how like bishop e4 is the main line, or one of the main lines here. It's a totally different situation. This is a completely different position. So looks like all these moves are possible. Knight d7, playable. Doesn't really do a lot. I think it's kind of slightly passive. And then white takes for no reason. I mean, the reason for this capture could be like white said to himself, well, your knight is not on a good square. a6 is a waiting move, that's true. We need to get more pawns on the white squares, but it's playable. Yeah, no, I would vote for one of these main lines. Maybe knight f6. Alright. Anyway, white like exchange here. So I think if you take this way, you have an exchange French, but it looks like white is still has a pretty good exchange French. I mean, the bishop's good there. Now the knight is boxed out. It's gonna have to like reposition itself. I mean, basically white is playing the Jabava London here if he plays bishop f4. Well, it's basically a Veresov now. White's next move is like inexplicable. I mean, the problem for black is that his knight would be better off on c6 probably. Though he does have the c file, I don't know how much he can do with it. White played queen d1. I mean, this seems kind of passive. I don't see playing queen d1 unprovoked. I mean, white should play probably like bishop d3. It was really difficult to understand what he was doing. I mean, bishop d3 looks like totally normal position. It's actually hard for black to put pressure on that pawn. I would even consider like g6 and bishop g7 trying to attack d4. Of course, then you got to watch for the h4, h5 maniac attack. White might yet like castle queenside or try to castle queenside like a Veresov. WJ Loof, wow. Long time no see. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for subscribing, 30 months. So queen d1 is really unnecessarily passive, and it totally Even if you had no intention of castling queenside here, why would you let your opponent know that? Like, even if you're like, I'm not going to risk castling queenside, then let them think about it. After bishop d3, you're going to castle kingside and you're going to castle kingside, but your opponent doesn't know that, so at least it gives us something to worry about, Like, let him stew over the fact that you might castle queenside. When you play queen d1, you're like announcing to the world, like, I'm definitely going to castle kingside. Now, that's an extremely passive move. This is Kakatiri, one of our subscribers, playing black in his first over-the-board game. I don't know how strong white is. Kakatiri is like 2000 strength lichess. Knight g f6, totally normal move. I would consider, as I said, g6 to fianchetto. You would probably have to meet h4 with h5 and play it like a Gurgenidze Caro-Kann. But I would consider it as an option. Here, bishop d3. And see, now this is the problem. You can't put much pressure on that pawn. Uber driver's right. Like, maybe knight e7 should be considered. You do the knight flip. Knight can come here or here, that's true. Yeah, knight e7 deserves consideration. But queen d1 was really bad. Yeah, this may be a little too robotic. Of course, he could maybe play bishop e4 and go for, like pressure. I don't know if that's any good. Bishop d3 is clearly a good move. So this is kind of artificial. White was going to castle kingside anyway. I'm not sure if queen b6 is good. And knight e2 is a useful move, I would say. He was probably going to have to do that anyway. Yeah, I mean, queen d1 seems like a very passive move. Unnecessarily passive. And it gives away that he's never going to castle queenside. Yeah, war of ideas. Uber driver's right. I mean, this is probably like more fluid. Okay, presumably like here, now here, and now here. Black's fine, and you also have knight b4 here. Actually, this would be a very handy move. Then bishop e5, you get hit by, well, I don't know. It's still not 100% clear. But anyway, lots of ideas. Knight f6, bishop d3, this move I'm not sure about. You are threatening to take the pawn, so he's forced to play that. And now, I mean, you could break with like e5, but you're just giving him a good French. So I'm not sure what the plan is, ultimately. I mean, white's going to play c3. And you're actually like blocking your minority attack on the queen side. Ken Worthy 39. Welcome. So I get this sort of weird feeling that queen b6 is a mistake. But I'm honestly not sure what we should do at this point. Play for the minority attack with like a standard sort of a6. It isn't that inspiring either. I mean, objectively, it looks like white is okay. Both sides are okay. Queen b6, knight e2. I mean, it looks like he's going to play c3, and if you're not careful, you're worse. I wouldn't want you to have to play Magnus Carlsen here. Like, Magnus likes these sort of exchange Caro positions. Bishop d6. That preempts bishop f4, and I think it's a good move. It can't be bad. No, absolutely, that's the square. Castle, castle, and then c3. And so now, okay, like, what's our plan? I mean, he did, like, the Aster mate plan, rook c8. We have no minority attack because our queen is on b6. Like, objectively, your queen should be on c7, I guess. And you should be trying to play, like, I'm saying like all the time, like I'm a valley girl. I do that sometimes. I mean, white can launch a stonewall attack type of thing on the king side. I mean, it can be very strong. White's minority attack with f5 is actually pretty dangerous. And we don't have any plans. Rook f c8, queen d8 feels passive. Everything is sort of passive here. I mean, you got to at least like consider this. I know it looks crazy, but if we do break out with e5, we sell out our structure to try to equalize to get some activity. Computer hates it. The problem is we don't really have a plan. You know, I mean, white is just slightly better. This doesn't do anything. You know, you have this, and try to set up the Acer mate with Queen H2. What's up, WJ Loof? Now white starts to go with a very fishy move. Okay, no, I get it. Queen C2, he's guarding B2. That's artificial, though. So maybe white has something better. Move the knight and try to like move his queen to E2. His queen should go to E2. So knight F4 or knight G3. Or we could go really extreme with like king H1, knight G1. And that looks a little over the top. But it's very hard for you to generate counterplay. Wow, knight E4 was suggested. Uber driver hanging out with Frank Marshall too much. This is not the Petrov. Yeah. I mean, it's not a mutually open E-file. If we try to play like F5, yes, of course it's possible. So let's say you try to stick the knight on E4. Obviously, you know, he could just kick you out with that. It doesn't really work. Alright, here, Queen C2, guarding B2, A6. I thought you were going to play Bishop B8, but this is fine. King H1. Is he thinking about this Stonewall maneuver? It looks like it. Yeah, once he plays F4, we could play knight E4. Now Queen C7, preparing B5. We can play A4, obviously. I think A4 looks like it's pretty much putting the brakes on your queenside expansion. After A4, it's very hard for black to achieve, very, very hard to achieve B5. If you correct your rook, we can play A5, and you're just sort of like stymied. If only, you know, we could play like knight C6 now. It's not easy, you know, this looks like kind of a problem. But he just didn't try to slow down your counterplay. He went for immediate gratification with F4. Yeah, I mean, I kind of assumed he was going to go for this type of thing, but I guess that's too slow. He's starting F5 now. So G6 is also your turn to think about, like, should we risk weakening ourselves to slow down his attack? And the answer is probably not. But again, I would at least consider it. You have to at least consider G6. It looks like we're going to allow F5 and then go with E5. Probably you should prep Rook E8 or something like that. You got to be ready to counterattack. I would probably play Rook E8. I don't know. Maybe he won't go with it then. He'll play like G4. It's tricky to say. Maybe we should just go with our counterplay. If he plays F5, we play E5. And we play this position with white having the better, like slightly better structure, but also maybe overextended. F4, B5, Bishop D2. This is like a ridiculously hesitant move. He wants to connect his rooks, but he gives you B4. Just to think he could have played A4 before. Oh, you mean you're dropping your A6 pawn? Oh shit. So this is actually a mistake. So Bishop D2 was okay. That's another problem with Rook C8. We need our other brother over on A8. I mean, you know, classic minority attack. And it's also the fact that you don't have a white square bishop. So b4 is just like a tactical mistake. I mean, it takes forever to get this thing moving. You literally have to play a very awkward move. Rook b8, and then a5 and slow motion, probably. Or alternatively, you can try knight b6. But I guess this is just a blunder. Takes here, and now you're down a pawn without enough comp. Takes, knight b6. I mean, you have some comp, and I'm not sure which way he should recapture there, by the way. I mean, I guess all options are on the table here. You have some compensation. At least you like distracted him from attacking you on the king side. I wonder what he should do. Is like a4. Yeah. a4 is the top move. Now apparently you have full compensation. I agree with e5. But you never know, like the computer might say this is a mistake. Don't panic. Right. It's a good point. These are two connect to pass pawns. I mean, they're hard to get down the board, but they still are two connect to pass pawns. I would think a long time here about which way to recapture on c3. You know? But I mean, structurally, you're okay. It's like he has an awful lot of pawn weaknesses. It seems like your structure is much more compact. You have no bad pieces. His Caro-Kann bishop started to be, you know, both his bishops are actually, ironically, his own bishops are blocked by his pawns. Arsenal. Wow, Arsenal's here. WJ Loof is here. Thanks, guys, for turning up. I got COVID as a New Year's present. Now I'm like tired every night, even though my symptoms are pretty much let up. I just like feel tired at 7 p.m. Arsenal has it too? Oh, guess who got COVID? Sladgie got COVID. Acerbate just gifted tier 1 sub to Alpha Canis Major. Arsenal fan says my opponent was called Adrian Tottenham. Totti. Alright. It's like that Wallace and Gromit movie. Queen c1, knight c4. Yeah, you got huge compensation. Now I'll take with the queen. Man, look at that. That's like the Uber knight. So materialistic. All the pawns are weak, you know, as we pointed out earlier. But I'm really liking that the knight coming to e4. That's the ultimate, like, French knight square. White should have pushed his a-pawn a long time ago when he first got to the structure. Yeah, this move is, I don't know, man. His knight's hanging, so he has to do something. Yeah, it's weird. If I look at it from White's perspective, I could probably better defend. My first inclination when I'm worse is start like trading pieces. You know, if I look at it from that perspective, it looks like bishop f4 is probably the best move. The bishop on e5 is brutally strong. I mean, let's get rid of that. I vote for that move. I want to trade my garbage bishop for that superpower bishop on e5. New meds have me sedated a lot lately. Not COVID, just crazy. I thought I was completely cured after a week, and it's just like I'm real fatigued. Not because of my meds. That probably doesn't help either. It's like I used to have problems like insomnia, but now I'm just like tired all the time. I could sleep whenever. This is probably not great. I would trade pieces. Try to trade pieces. You're on the autism spectrum, aren't we all? That's why it's a spectrum. Don't believe the hype. You're not on the spectrum, you are the spectrum. Be positive. Own it, WJ Loof. Be the spectrum. Alright, so the temptation now is to go for good knight versus bad bishop. I really like Black's game. He's better here. But I mean, I admit it's tempting. It's tempting. It's hard to not take that pawn on a2. It is a dangerous outside pawn. Welcome to the Asterbait Club. If you play all of your classical games using just 5 minutes, the chances are you're on the autistic spectrum. Alright, queen takes a2. Bishop f4. And now you took on f4. You see, now here is an interesting point, Kakatiri. A couple of things. You know, you may believe and you may be right that bishops are better than knights in general. But I think here you've got a very interesting situation where you can have a super knight on e4. And the other thing is that in this particular scenario, where the queens are on the board, the queen and the knight tandem is very strong. So I think you should strongly consider this. Sadly, it's probably not enough to win. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible. It's a tough one. You know, even though this might not be the best move, it might be the best practical try. I'm not sure though. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this is what the computer suggests. At least he found bishop f4 trying to trade pieces. I mean, I like my chances here with Black. Either way, but you know, you are kind of fixing his pawn though. It seems like it's less weak on the closed file. It's a tough one. I honestly don't know what to expect from the analysis engine here. It might turn out and say like that's the best move. Obviously rook e8 is a move. I'm afraid it's just going to lead to mass liquidations. Take. Yeah, I mean this doesn't. I don't know. I mean, there you win a pawn. Be funny like that position. Is that lost? Can you imagine the oofness of that? Yeah, I'm just kind of joking around. That would be a sick way to lose, though, wouldn't it? Oh shit! I didn't see 96. That's kind of a problem. No checks. Where of ideas says queen c7 after queen b8. Where are we playing queen b8? So anyway, alright, bishop f4 is tough move for white, huh? Yeah, I like bishop f4. But I don't know here. Let's see what the oracle says. Yeah, it agrees with bishop takes f4. I think it's a tough decision, though. I mean, this is definitely a totally reasonable decision. I wouldn't tell anyone, like, hey, you're an idiot if you played bishop takes d4. You know, seriously. Hey, that's definitely a bad move. The problem seems to be that, like, in this kind of position, his bishop can maybe get in there, be relatively good for a bad bishop. It's just not that easy. So this pawn remains weaker on c3, and you add that. That's a nice move. Yeah, I mean, his rook is a catastrophe on f4. So this pawn is remaining weak here. I think that's the point, you know. With bishop takes f4 versus bishop takes d4, the pawn is less of a target on d4 and easier for him to keep protected. But this looks very awkward. I mean, why would you go with the rook takes? He can still come back and, like, defend this. Even if he lost it, it wouldn't be game over. But, I mean, you know, rook takes is extremely strange. Like, where is his rook going from there? I mean, that's a super awkward move. Why prefer rook takes and leave your back rank weak at the same time? That was literally, like, one of his worst moves. Check. King h2. There was a queen c4 with the double attack? No. I mean, this is protected. Well, I mean, the pawn may fall. You know, it's true. It may fall, like, eventually. But there's nothing, like, immediate. You know. He said he wanted to do g4 and mate you. Yeah. Not a lot of chances for mate for him. It's a little late for that. So that's a close call. You know, you also have this sort of thing. Knight e4 with the threat of queen a1. I mean, I have the feeling he's lost here. But I'm not sure if this is the best move or not. You're giving him rook f2, right? No, he doesn't have rook f2. So he has to play queen f3. Queen f3 is forced. Do you actually have... Do you have a live threat here? I mean, are you threatening me? Are you threatening anything? I mean, are you threatening, like, knight takes c3 or something? Is there an actual threat? Arsenal spotted it. Yeah, it feels like black went wrong. I don't think rook b2 is the right move. No, third best, fourth best move. Better than my suggestion. What's wrong with 94? Damn, are you serious? Well, I mean, okay, computer can claim this as a draw, but I want to see, like, the average player hold this in practice. You know? I mean, okay, technically, like, the engine might be able to draw it, but it's not that easy. Yeah. It's actually changed to a technical draw. So technically the best move is queen a1. He can get out here. Maybe he should just bail right away. And then you have the knight check. So this was a little stronger than rook b2, it looks like. Rook b2, not bad, and you're definitely close to winning. You've got the two weaknesses, weakness 1, weakness 2. And you just got to kind of work back and forth between them. But it kind of looks like he's on the verge of hanging on here. Wait, couldn't he do the same thing now? Why can't he do rook takes e4 here? He could still do it, right? This is not nearly as good. Wow, that's weird. For some reason, this version, because your rook doesn't have to retreat back to the back rank, you can play h6. That's very interesting. In the other case, you had to bring your rook back and go passive with one of your heavy pieces. But in this endgame, now black can stay with those two pieces active. Although a lot of people would have probably, myself included, would have likely like played rook b8 to be safe. Obviously h5 is possible as well. Yeah. That's Jim's insta move and bullet. Here it looks like white does have some chances though. Now you've got that sneaky threat over there. Very sneaky. Still not clear. Wow, so he did the craziness. He did it to himself. It's like the Radiohead classic. Did it to himself. Oh my god. %99 of tactics don't work. It's that simple. White is alive and still in the game. And he just like did it to himself with a fancy tactic. He just didn't realize how lucky he is to like still be alive here. And he's playing knight e6. Fatal optimist. Typical example of fatal optimism. I realize I probably wouldn't have done that. Yeah, that's... His Achilles heel is the fatal optimism. So how does it work? Like if you get two moves in a row, it's one of those like if I had two moves in a row, it would work. It's not even close to working. Did he think he had like f6 or something? Oh man. I mean, you did like rook f2 here. How many refutations are there? There's like 10. You could play queen f8, queen e7, queen d6 check, rook f2. That's so sad. And now e7. Yeah, nah. I guess he was in time pressure. But anyway. Final position before the blunder, you were still clearly better. It was a difficult position for white where he was overextended. Anyway, that was a long analysis. Alright. Kakatiri's done. We're going back to our original study. The early gems. TV killed the radio star? What is it? Where is my study? Alright. Pac-Man fever. Oh my god. Alright, Jim is up. Jim, thank you for donating. Video killed the radio star. Video. Yeah, I forgot. I've got COVID. Give me a break. It's making my dementia worse. So, d4, d5, c4, knight f6. What? Dude, are you serious? You did that against me? I can't believe it. You like snuck it past me when I wasn't paying attention. Jim seriously did this. I didn't even know it at the time. I can't believe it. You played d5? I think I wasn't paying attention and I moved fast and I was just like, whatever, huh? And I didn't realize he was like playing the Marshall defense. And he played that and it just confused me. This is just a random blitz game. Yeah, I mean, this is not recommended to to play in a long over-the-board game. I mean, I presume, so if we look at the opening explorer here, like c6 is an actual move. So you're basically playing that. You're playing. You should have been. Because if I had been paying attention, I would have taken en passant probably. We follow Vorobiev versus Vaigantsev. I mean, it's okay. It's entertaining for a blitz or bullet game. Knight takes. Yeah, I mean, this is one of Jim's me bullet opening gambits. It's reasonable. I definitely faced this before. Knight f3. So, it's funny, the only one is Vaigantsev who's played this. They're probably a rapid game. Yeah, I mean, if you want to really take the life out of it, you trade queens. Sandipan. It's a tricky, sort of trappy idea here. Is 94 played? Sandipan's opponent played 94, and he played bishop e3. He's like, what's up, dude? I mean, black has some compensation, but not enough for 2 pawns, just for 1. Queen takes d1, king takes d1. I'm happy to play this in a tournament game. This looks like best. Yeah, it's kind of like an Albin. You have Albin counterplay here. Maybe g6, speaking of the Albin. Yeah, it's almost reasonable. Hard to believe h3 is a good move. h3, knight on g takes e5. Knight takes e5, knight takes e5. So you have a nice endgame down a pawn. e4. So there's some correspondence games here, clearly. I hope for their sake that those are not over-the-board games. Yeah, I mean, black is only minus 0.7, which is kind of like a standard Albin. It's not that bad, I guess. But he snuck it past me. I didn't realize that's what we were playing. I just wasn't paying attention, and all of a sudden, what happened? So I played knight c3, and this gives him the pawn back. Next thing I know, I'm like, oh, I'm just playing a semi-Tarrasch, whatever. I thought it was a normal semi-Tarrasch. I didn't even pay attention. Knight f3. At this point, I looked at the screen, and I was like, okay, it's a semi-Tarrasch. I'm expecting him to play pawn takes pawn, and it's a main line with queen d4, knight takes, queen takes, knight c6, e4. This type of line. But this directly does transpose. If you play c takes d here. I mean, that's you're transposing to a mainline semi-Tarrasch now. Knight takes c3 is another variation. We'll have to consult. I'd have to consult Schieberspieler. You could also go into a Grunfeld now. So that's funny. Okay, so this is a new move. Wow, Tal Tchaikovsky. Did we look at this after the game? Oh yeah, we did, because we talked about Fatachnik playing that guy from El Salvador that I played. So I did briefly look at this. I mean, what in the world is that guy thinking playing that against Fatachnik? That must have been in the Olympiad. El Salvador versus Slovakia. 4-0, obviously. You've never heard of Tchaikovsky? Yeah, he was a classic. He's still probably alive. I never heard of him dying. Classic Soviet era grandmaster. Standard. No, Tchaikovsky's younger than Tao, probably. He was one of those, like, top tier Russian grandmasters. Probably on the Olympic team. One of the lower boards on, like, the Soviet Olympic teams and stuff in the 80s. So, yeah, knight c6 is just a mistake. So e4. Yeah, again, I don't know. I didn't want to risk it. But this was weird. Like, we looked at it after the game. There's no problem. Can we get away with bishop development here? Say what? You want to do the Trompowsky or something? No, I'm just kidding. Bishop development for black? Oh yeah, Jim would love to play like bishop f5. Good luck with that. Yeah, that's kind of entertaining. Maybe bishop f5. I mean, this position is... what? Wow, he died? Tchaikovsky died in 2011? Are you serious? Well, that sucks. Nobody told me. So I was playing too much poker. That's sad. He wasn't that old. I think that's what Jim's talking about. I mean, WJ Loof. Did not realize. Not keeping up with my Soviet grandmasters. Bishop d2, that's the typical Uber move. He was 67 in 2011. Yeah, I was surprised he was even that old. Yeah, I don't know. I could have played e4 right away, but again, this just transposes. So I don't see a problem with this, Jim. You know, your problem is that other variation where actually there's some other interesting things. Like, I could have played e4. We don't even like talk about this yet. Speaking of... back in the day, they know how to keep their ratings. e4 is interesting. Knight takes e4. Gimeshi has a game. He quit chess. This is really messed up. White is better on these lines too. Well, I mean, we're just like trading one pawn for another. I mean, black's position is pretty weird here. The knight is an extremely strange position on c5. But you get an e5. Bill Martz, 1972. That was a good year. Anyway, that's another interesting possibility. Yeah, I mean, d5 is strong and weak, Arsenal. It's all in your perspective. Yeah, it's all about how you look at things. You know, I think that d5 is strong, and you think it's weak. But in reality, we're both right, and we're both wrong, you know? That position is interesting. It's all about perspective. Is this pawn weak? I mean, it's extremely strong, but it's also potentially weak as well. And right now, it's like kicking black's ass. I mean, it's taking the knight away from going to c6. You can't put your pieces on e6. It's in my airspace. It's basically making my life a living hell right now. I mean, potentially it could fall. But it can also be, like, supported by knight c3, bishop c4. Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, it gets traded off. Yeah, if you try e6, you get bishop e5 check. No, I think that pawn is not weak, necessarily. But it's an interesting line. Yeah, Jim snuck this on me, so we got transposed to a normal semi-Tarash. Now it's a Panov. It's all up in your grill. It is, man. It is. Exactly. It's in your face, is what it is. You got to play around it. Probably, Till Whipperman was right, and the way to go is e5, not e6, and you just live with it. So check him out. He played bishop f5, and I thought this was a mistake. But afterwards, we looked at the game, and there's actually some games here. You think like, okay, bishop g4 is like a quintessential variation of the Caro. E6 is standard move. G6 is a line I've played a lot. We're running out of ideas now. But, yeah, Jim, why don't you try e5 and just like sack a pawn here or something? Just kidding. All right, bishop f5. So I thought this was a mistake, and I played this. And we looked at this. The problem was queen b3, knight b4. Someone suggested queen b3, but I saw, of course, that we've got serious issues. If d5, check, slight, we got a slight issue. It's basically like a Kiel variation of the Scandinavian. So you can't allow that. I was jokingly suggesting knight h4 because it is kind of similar to the Slav. This would be like a draw by repetition. That would be a funny joke, draw by repetition. I'll have to do that with a friend sometime. If I ever play somebody, we'll make like a 11 move draw with knight h4. Maybe we'll try that. Funny draws, funny draws by repetition. But all right, bishop f5. What do you do? So I was kind of like confused here. Why is this okay? So I could come up with at the end of the day was like bishop e5. You could play bishop c4 here. So bishop e5, and now Jim misplayed it. No, not yet. e6, and I should castle. I played this. Now where is it? You're supposed to play rook c8 here. This is instructive. So there's two games here, and both players played knight b4, which is kind of weird. That move feels wrong. Oh man, it's like it's another face hugger knight. g4, knight c2 check is better for white. You can play bishop g6. This is fantastically complicated. Wow. If you go for the rook, I mean, it's just like king is safe, knight gets trapped in the corner, and we're just taking that. Anyway, rook c8 is best according to the computer. Those guys played knight on db4. Yeah, it's a common theme. If my knight wasn't on e5, if I had castled instead, then if he goes for that, obviously, that's really slow. Knight e5 is probably not the best move for white. And now he played queen c7. I mean, I understand why he doesn't want to put the rook on c8. Like, who wants their rook on a closed file? The problem is with queen c7, he could get hit by bishop f4, I thought. I thought his queen is more likely to get attacked. And I played that, and I forced him to play rook c8. And now castle. And now bishop d6. And at this point, I kind of figured, like, maybe I don't have anything here. It's not technically a closed file. Not yet. But it could be. It's likely to be if I take on c6. Yeah, I mean, the problem with white's position, I think, is that queen. The queen is really, really committed, like, out of play on a4. At d1, it has loads of flexibility to travel to either side of the board, but it's, excuse me, queen a5. Yeah, we're going to delete that. You know, the queen doesn't have the ability to switch across to the other side from here. So I did this, and then this, and then he just castles, and he's fine. So I was going for, like, a good outpost square, maybe on c5, bishop takes c6, b takes c. If I could trade, I realized, hey, this hangs a piece. Anyway, that doesn't work, so bishop g3. Oh, Jim missed f6, that was it. I almost forgot. So I played bishop f4, and doesn't this win a piece? We were joking about Feingold. He has f6. But not in this position, does he? Maybe I was wrong. Yeah, that was the point. No. Maybe I was wrong. Like, I thought you could win a piece with f6, but I have knight takes c6. Right. Okay, I guess I was full of crap. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought that Jim missed a chance to win a piece. But that makes sense. And then I took here. He took, and I went back. Okay, so I never blundered a piece. And that was what I was talking about by closed file. You know, but objectively, like, Jim is fine here. He has two bishops. I have to have, like, the perfect scenario to be better, I think. Like, knight on c5, treated our square bishops, and white is better. So now he went over to b8, which was kind of understandable. But what about c5? I mean, this is a move we really want to play, isn't it? If you play c5, it doesn't win material, does it? I mean, everything's protected. I could move my knight back or something, you know, whatever. But positionally, like, this is guarded. But if he gets, like, pushing c4, I mean, he could take or push, depending what I do. Like, say I play that. What does he do? Push? Is the pawn strong or weak? You know, now he has some serious questions, like this pawn, for example. I don't know, you know? But my inclination was that black was fully equal. Yeah, c5 is better, wow. He's more than equal. c5 is just strong. I literally should play knight f3. So rook c1, c4, and black has clear advantage. Queen b5, that's my line. Bishop e6. It's like Capablanca. You just have this strong pawn on c4. Man. b3. Obviously, you wouldn't want to play this position against Schieberspieler or something. But the engine likes the two bishops and the passed pawn. Jim just played, like, a very bad move, rook b8. That was kind of leaving c6 unprotected. I mean, obviously, I guess here he has bishop d7, right? That's kind of funny. But queen takes c6, bishop takes c5, queen takes c7. So I could have taken the pawn right away, but I dropped b2. So I played that. And then, obviously, again, he could play c5. It may not be quite as good now. Ironically, his rook on c8 wasn't going to be on a closed file arsenal. Not forever, anyway. You Yeah, he just plays a little too fast here. I wonder if I could take the pawn. It looks like he's hanging this pawn. No? I mean, no guaranteed win, but clearly we're better. Yeah, so that was just sloppy. Once I got him tied down to c5, he's worse. And then I just took the pawn. And then Jim just like resigned here. But I mean, obviously this is a heavy piece ending where you're down one pawn. Black has incredibly high chances of holding a draw here. Rook endgame is holding for black after bishop e5, queen c7, bishop c7, bishop c7, rook c8. Well, it's not a rook ending, it's a bishops and rook endgame, and it's opposite-colored bishops. So it's very complex. I don't think it's an easy task. It's not as easy as like a normal like rook endgame where you're only down a pawn or something. It might be significantly, see, that's my dementia, significantly harder. Dementia and a beer. Jim shouldn't resign here. You know, I mean, his chances to draw are quite good. So he was just disgusted with himself for hanging a pawn and prematurely resigned. Queen takes c6, active defense, rook e2, rook a6, rook b7. This pawn is weak. So I have to put my rook on a bad square there. And it should be a draw, probably. Anyway, Jim likes to give me credit by resigning prematurely. And donates to the stream. Anyway, alright. We've got Eubates. Eubates and Sumaher. Iobates. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Good to see WJ Loof, Jim, Arsenal, a bunch of you guys who aren't always here. guys and girls. Sorry. My COVID is coming back. That's like the time that I resigned against Kamsky. Actually, yours is much better. I was really, really worse against Kamsky when I resigned a pawn down. It was like more than a pawn down. It was just bad. This is a bad resignation against anybody. Alright, so this is Eubates' game. Eubates playing black. He likes to play, you know, a lot of Dunst, Nimzovich defenses with early knight c3, knight c6. So we have d4, e5, and this is actually a common line of the Nimzovich. Usually like e4, knight c6, d4, e5, like this. Obviously, it can be reached by other move orders. The Mexican, d4, knight c6. Even Magnus doesn't win all his pawn-up endgames. I hope not. I mean, heavy piece endgames are characteristically like drawish, even if you're up a pawn. As they say, all rook endgames are drawn. So knight e7, and then a controversial move by white now. I mean, the problem is this is black's strong point. Black played e5. White, so there's like an inconsistency in white's play, if you think about it logically. How to explain that the next move is kind of inconsistent and incorrect strategically. White has like pressure on the e5 pawn, correct? And consistently, you know, increasing the pressure on that pawn would seemingly be logical. You know, knight f3, or maybe destroy the pawn itself is probably the best move. That's what I prefer to play. White has an advantage in this position. He has a powerful pawn on e4. White does not have a central pawn after knight takes c5. White is better. This line is interesting. The other day I had a game where I did like this. I did g takes f3. I figured, why not? I mean, I have to be better here. White has to be better here. It was just an offhand game, but even that, you know, for example, queen takes is the main move. But anyways, so my point is, like, white takes the pressure off of e5, right? And then what does he do? He like turns around and like attacks e5 again. I mean, something about that. Is it just me, or does that not seem logical? You know, you have like pressure on e5, you give it up, release it, and then you go back to like a new way of attacking e5. So what happens is like black now has a strong point on e5. Theoretically, you could play knight g6 here. It's funny. Actually, about us. How strong is this move? We didn't look at this. Could this lead to later on white can advance the e-pawn? Sure, I mean, anytime you destroy an enemy's central pawn, isn't that kind of like the point, right? Like, eventually, you can conquer that space. I think this is what we're talking about. You know, that's the point of, like, destroying the enemy's center in the first place. If you play e4, e5, and I play d4, and I take... Not right now, but later on, yeah. I mean, there's no bastion there in the long run. That's why white is better long term in this type of structure. Wow. Nice to meet you too. Petrosian is like looking down. Sorry guys. Wasn't me. Anyway, knight c6, d4, e5, d5. Mr. Coffee is still here? Mr. Coffee had to leave. Mental illness. Standard troll. It's unusual though that a troll would like call themselves after like a great chess player, I would think. Especially Petrosian, who was a thoughtful chess player. So check this out. d5, knight e7. But did we miss something here? f4, knight g6? I mean, the main point is this, right? You can't push because you get like destroyed by queen h4 check. But do you? Maybe this is a trap, no? White has king d2. This is not a joke. This is very similar to another variation that I recognize. The astronomy reference? Of course your name is an astronomy reference. I don't even know astronomy, but I know that. But Canis has something to do with dog, right? I mean, it's like that's Latin for dog. The big dog. The first big dog. We'll do our Latin interpretation of your name. The beginning of the big dog. Yeah, we're not idiots around here. We're a pretty cultured group. We talk about socks and radiators. Some of us are more cultured than others. But, you know, this I think is the question. Queen h4 check. Obviously g3, this is toast. You know, white is toast. But king d2 goes into like la la land. This becomes completely unclear. Oh yeah, I looked at this once. Snap. So it's knight f6. I couldn't remember. Knight f6. Oh, this is crazy. Like, check this out. Yeah, I couldn't remember. It was too obscure. The computer says that black is better after knight f6. Like, you'd have to be an expert in the system or just a general super grandmaster to find that move. I mean, it's a whole piece. we're threatening to win. But after this, he's ravaged. So white just doesn't have time to take the piece. Wow, this is just ridiculous. Queen f3, knight takes e4 check. That's like best play by both sides. King e2, knight f4 check. Bishop f4. Queen takes f4. Queen takes f4, e takes f4. There's nothing left but remnants of white's position. But that's important because that revitalizes this whole variation. Like, check it out. Mr. Jula is a really good player. Couldn't find knight g6. This is an improvement on theory for Yabatis. There's a lot of contributions that Stockfish can make. It looks like knight g6 literally improves on established theory in this position. That's really deep. h4. Oh my god. Another form of Roach Motel. So, if the knight goes in, it doesn't get out? Is that what you're telling me? Knight takes f4. Everything's okay. I'm completely fine. g3. Oh, you could just come back here. I was afraid of h5. Man, you gotta really know what you're doing here for black, or you could get in trouble. But anyway, it's fodder for imagination. Knight g6 is the best move. But e takes f4 isn't bad. Now I'm not sure what you take with the bishop. Maybe you should consider another option. And Yabatis just played d6. In another game, I saw he played knight g6 in a similar position. I mean, if you do this, can't you play... I mean, don't you have bishop c5 now? Why block that in? Kadash Gabor, Hungarian master who died some years ago, he was famous for playing 1h4. Like, they call 1h4 the Kadash opening. I never met him. But here he's playing against Gyula Mester, who's like a very, very strong FIDE master. After bishop g3, I mean, the point is we have bishop c5, right? So Yabatis' move d6 is inaccurate. I suggested this possibility later on. We'll see. Here. Yeah, now bishop b5 check is interesting. That's what he played. Never mind. Here. Yeah, bishop c5 is good if you can get it. Check. Wow. What's going on around here? Okay, you can't do this, right? Takes. This is not going to fly. Here. Okay, he traded off his bad bishop, which is actually good for white in a sense. Could I quickly submit my last game? Over the board. Opponent played really unusual move in Tarash. Quickly. That'll be our last game. Bishop e3. This seems more consistent to go to g3 to fight for the e5 square, in my opinion. He went here. Now knight f6. Knight c3. I wonder if white should consider knight d2 or some other option like queen d3 maybe. Maybe queen d3 here. Because you might not want to obstruct your c-pawn from upward mobility. Maybe this is better, keeping your options open with that knight. He just like blindly played knight c3. And now he played... What is the plan? You got like two plans. Plan 1 and Plan 2. But Lasker had this thing about bad bishops, like, or bad pieces. And he's right. Like, this piece will be very strong if it finally gets into the game. I mean, you clearly have a limited amount of plans, but it's obviously going through e7. I mean, there's still a small chance it come out on g7. This is a crazy move, though. I mean, black is not really playing with a full deck here. I would probably play bishop e7 pretty quickly in this position. You know, clearly with the idea of castling kingside and maybe like knight g4 at some point. Yeah. You know, there's a couple different ways to look at this position. I mean, you could play for a blockade, which is a passive type of style of approach, or you can play for pressure on the backward pawn on e4. Yabatas plays for the more active approach where he's pressuring that pawn on e4. It's obviously highly risky, but look what happened. Like, takes. Like, did white have a tactic there? Not really. Queen d4 is just knight back to f6. You know, so there's like bishop takes a7, whatever. Rook e1, bishop e7. You could try maybe bishop g5. You know, maybe this was a problem. Maybe this is really dangerous. Okay, you can castle, you lose the exchange there with bishop g5 now. I don't love that. You practically have to play this. You could alternatively play knight e5. That's also dangerous, though. Again, like bishop d4. Yeah, this looks pretty dangerous. White was too hasty with like bishop takes a7. Bishop g5 is better. On bishop g5, he can trap your king in the center. So I'm not sure what we would do here. For example, I don't know. Yeah, you might have some issues now. Queen a4, queen f5. I'm not sure where to go. Bishop takes e7, knight e7, queen e2. And now you're going to have to play queen d7 and pray. Manually. He's going to have to manually castle. Laughing at my own jokes. It's pretty lame. Of course he should be punished for trying to castle. Yeah. Yeah, he's going to have to walk away with king f8. It's a good thing the other rook isn't on f1 or you'd really be in trouble. Yeah, this was lucky. He took the a7 pawn. That's not nearly as good. And now black is going to trap the bishop if you don't get it out of there. And now black's completely okay. And he's like better. Black's actually better now because the bishop comes out and white is like slightly overextended. h3, queen d7. I mean, this doesn't really do anything. You could play more actively if you wanted to. You could try like queen h5 maybe, or queen f5. But you know, after c4, ultimately your queen might be attacked again. So he went back, and then white played c4. Now bishop f6, and that's the answer to the bishop. So you have no bad pieces. You know, very Steinitzian. Queen c2, rook e8. Now the only danger is this. You know, if white advances his pawns down, it's a passer. You know, he's got a very strong potentially passed pawn on the queen side. That majority on the queen side is actually kind of dangerous. But I don't know what white's supposed to play here. He can't play b4 because he hangs the rook on a1, and he could play a4. Come to think of it, I mean, that's probably what I would play if I were white. He's putting the pawn on the right color. He might have like rook a3. If rook takes e1 check, you can take back with like the bishop or something. And you're pushing this majority on the queen side up. I think this is the way to go. White needs to put his pawns on white squares too. a4 is good. It prevents b5. This is a really bad move. And now knight e5. And then white plays a really aggressive move. You would think he would just like trade and it's relatively equal. I mean, seriously, this is probably a draw objectively. And it's possible that white could get that queenside majority moving. But he plays that. I guess the knight is good. Here. I guess white is still better. And then he should play this, giving himself an outside pawn. Black should take with the knight. Not to give white a pass pawn on the queen side. Yeah, we decided white is slightly better with the better structure. This is an important defensive move for black. This is much more dynamic, but it leaves white with that, what is effectively a protected pass pawn. Okay, it's not clear, but it might be safer to play knight takes c6. So we said that. He plays rook c1 is a bad move. You could obviously take here, and the pawn on d5 starts to become kind of weak. And then white just blundered this. Knight d3. I guess he just figured it's no problem. Rook takes rook check. The funny part is he's losing anyway. Because you're hitting this, and the knight on d4 is like protected by the bishop on f2. So he just left that huge weakness. I mean, it's really a one-move blunder. Now this, there's no defense. There's just no defense. And he just wins the exchange. This is nice. And kind of a funny move too, like if knight takes c6. Well, rook a8 is winning. This happens in a moment, no? White played queen d1, bishop e5, here. Oh, okay. Rook c8 defending the pawn, queen f5, and then this is a very strange move by black. And then white threatens mate in 1, but he misses it, okay. He doesn't allow it. And then that. I don't know, man. Queen c1 is really weird. c5. I thought this is actually tricky because you're giving him a good square for his knight. And then I guess rook b8 is good. But the text move isn't bad. He's just guarding. And then the worst move ever, queen g5. And white simply gets mated on the back rank. It's legally only 2 moves until mate. So rook c2 defends. Rook c2. Where? Rook c7. Yeah. Yeah, rook c7 wasn't necessary. I think I would have just played g6. Making Luft. I don't want to have any chance of back rank mate. Oh, after the knight fork. After the knight fork. With knight d3? You mean after the rook exchange, and then, okay, yeah, rook exchange, rook c2. No, the problem is he's losing his knight anyway after knight takes f2. I mean, there is no defense of that. You know, that's just, it's just dropping. He lost a piece. I mean, there was nothing he could do. It doesn't matter what he does. No, it was really sad. Notice how out of play the queen is on a4, whereas formerly it was in the center of the board, where it's well placed. Okay, Arsenal fan, if you'd like to submit a game, you can go ahead and do so. That'll be our last game for today. I've got, did you send it over on the, you sent it over there? You sent it over there? Okay. Copy. I'll get to your game last. Back of the line. So, oh, Sumaher. Sumaher can watch it on the replay if he had to leave. Sumaher is also playing the Caro-Kann. Oh, it's the same variation. c6, knight f3, d5, knight c3, bishop g4. See, the problem is now white does this very standard mistake. I guess it transposes to a Veresov. E takes d5. This is not really a good move in a vacuum. Although, like, tons of people play this. Queen e2 there? Are you serious? Chigvintsev. It's a combination of Chigorin and Zvagintsev. It's Chigvintsev. If you say so. You can always play Queen e2, man. Maybe that'll be my new second move against the Caro-Kann. We should just play Queen e2 on move 2. I played against the Sicilian. I played against the French mostly, but I never thought about doing it against the Caro-Kann. I'm surprised Chigvintsev doesn't have any games in there. See, is that a coincidence that he's Chigvintsev? I think not. Alright, so e4, c6, bishop g4. Here, here. Oh, now Queen e2, you mean. The cheapo. Cheapo that's like not even really a big deal. a6. Well, lots of engines playing Queen e2 and Queen e7, they probably forgot to turn on the opening book. Okay, so pawn takes pawn is not a big deal. Check. Normally I see d4 here. Really shocking that there's not more games from this position. It's not that bad for white. It's probably equal. If you looked in like the lichess Opening Explorer, seriously, there's going to be like 60,000 games here. Jesus Christ. I almost nailed it on the nose. That's crazy, man. 56,639. I'd be good at like guessing those games at parties. So like how many balls are in the container or whatever. There was one game in the master database in this position, and now there's like 56,659 on lichess. That is a lot of trash to wade through. There's probably some good games in there, but almost impossible. Man, you could do something with that info, you know, to sift through it and throw out the garbage and try to find some good ideas amongst those millions of bad games. All right. I'm going to take everything that Uber Driver says with a grain of salt. Bishop e5 check. Let's go back to reality. Emil Pessi. This guy has a tendency to play strange openings from what I've seen. Now knight c6. So could you try like knight d7? No, it just like drops a pawn. So you have virtually no option here. I mean, bishop d7 looks ridiculous. You have to play knight c6. Castle. Yeah, I mean, by the way, most people will play h3, in which case you should probably take... Moldovan just took. You know, again, if bishop h5, we're transposing back into the danger zone variation. Yeah, it's much safer to take on f3. So now knight f6. I don't know. Yeah, the problem is if you play e6, rook e1, and you can't go here because of knight takes d5. I mean, I'm not sure what's going on here. Like, takes. That's kind of an interesting variation. Maybe not that bad for black. Computer thinks it's okay. But Engine also thinks that his move is the best. Knight f6. Or, well, let's see. Knight f6 right away. d4. Yeah, this is a very typical variation. e6. h3. And now bishop takes f3. Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of games like this against people. You know, at some stage, when he's castled kingside, maybe bishop h5 starts to become more realistic. It's not quite as bad now. You probably can't sack a piece. I mean, there's still a fair amount of danger here. But I would think it would be a little better than the standard version, because white's committed to castling kingside. You might consider bishop h5. This is much safer. Queen takes. Yeah, it looks like black has hardly lost any games now. I've literally had this position against numerous people. Mozart. Castling is definitely inaccurate. Welcome, Mozart. Always a thoughtful analyst. Happy New Year. So, yeah, I mean, I've often debated, like, I would rather have, like, bishop d6 so I can put the knight on e7, like a queen's gambit. It's basically a queen's gambit in reverse. This is basically a Rogozin queen's gambit in reverse. HTWN is rating with party of one. Party of one. I think we can find a table for you. Yeah, this is a tough one. It's a tough one. I mean, white is like equal here. It's really frustrating to play against this stuff. It's hard to beat people if they're like not taking any chances. White needs to follow up with what? Bishop takes c6. Who needs the light squares? I mean, white usually will follow up with bishop takes c6 because he like has to. You know, like bishop there will like drop the d4 pawn. Man, there's even some good players here. Vallejo has a game. Stefan Juric. It's not that stupid for white. It's just like unambitious and leaves white with no edge. But I don't know about where to place the bishop. You see, the thing is they go bishop g5. That's annoying. Another option, you know, could be to like play queen c7. Then white will play bishop f4 anyway, and you just have to like swap bishops. White is just a little bit worse structurally. Rook c8 has been played. I mean, it's hard to do a minority attack with your rook on c8, right? It's tough to decide what to play here. So he allows the pin, and now castle. I've probably done crazy stuff like queen c7, sacking a pawn before, but you can't get castled. This isn't good. You see now knight e2, as played in that game. Then the bishop can come back to d3 potentially. Yeah, the sack's on d5. Our king is not safe in the center there. You see, like, this guy went back with bishop e7. I mean, this is totally inconsistent. That's why I don't like that in the first place. Takes. We need to do this accurately. I mean, I'm wondering about knight f6 in the first place. First of all, like, you should probably play e6 first. And then when white, assuming they go d4. Here's a game with Le Siege. And Alex played bishop d6. See, he's not committing his knight one way or the other. Now rook e1. And see, now knight e7. So this is what I've done. I mean, this kind of makes the most sense. Exactly. Le Siege is a Canadian Grandmaster, and he's a good player. I mean, I don't remember if he was GM. Yeah, he was about GM in 96. He's a funny guy. Bishop g5. Yeah, but I mean, this is a better setup. I agree. Yeah, this is what I would normally do. This way he leaves himself, you know, with no flexibility. And at this point, maybe you're better off just playing bishop e7, anticipating that pin. Now knight e2, and you see it's like Vallejo versus Navarra. And then I've had this exact game. If bishop d3, fortunately black has knight b4, taking out the good bishop. Like, you don't want to end up like getting crushed by Magnus Carlsen. I mean, if white gets that in, well, maybe the Uber driver trick works now. Polak Tomasz has a game here. Bishop d3, and then your f5, man. Uber driver knows all. Typical Pillsbury. Except really our bishop would be better off on this diagonal, I would think, in the structure. But that is an option. But anyway, Vallejo versus Navarra draw. Look, Juric versus Vizhmanavin, another very strong player. who passed away years ago at a young age. Bijmanabin actually managed to win with black, but it's tough. So anyway, I don't like this. We wasted time. Bishop takes c6 unprovoked. Not a great move. And then this is a catastrophe. HTW raiding again. Double raid. Bishop takes f6 is like the worst move ever. You've got a nice pin here. Just releasing the pin and giving black a better ending. Yeah, I would trade queens. And the thing is, the sad part is, it's like still probably drawable for white. I would think about g4. But I guess black is still better. Not so easy, you know. Better by over a pawn. The engine doesn't agree on g4. Maybe it's not necessary. You think white's bishop is worse on h4 than the original diagonal. So after bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, bishop e7. Oh, like, play h6. And when he plays here, you go back? Well, no, I mean, I think if I were him, I guess in that scenario, you know, then I would probably put my bishop on that diagonal. I mean, this diagonal is not too bad. Your dressing gown. You defeated the bathrobe. Dressing gown. Okay, Scrooge McDuck. This is horrible. This endgame is much, much better for black. You might want to use the A pawn at some point. This c5 is to be expected. But it's not easy, man. I mean, not easy for black to win this. Not against a good player. Yeah, he definitely doesn't really want to put pawns on dark squares. Yeah, no, this is coming. I mean, rook c8 is coming. And like, your bishop can come to a3. I don't know what to recommend for white. Asterbate gifted a sub to Mozart. Thank you, Asterbate. Mozart is always a great contributor to analysis. He is a national master. c3. C takes d4. C takes d4. I mean, so like white would rather preserve their pawn structure with like knight takes, I guess. But you know, how strong is this pressure? On the other hand, black looks beautiful. Black is beautiful here. Man. I mean, I just don't know how white can equalize. It looks really bad. I was desperately thinking even like c4 or something. It's bad. This is bad. We got no way to get in c4, to trade off that strong pawn on d5. I mean, that's the real problem. This pawn is so powerful, and there's no way to evade this pressure on the c file. You know, I personally might not have exchanged right away. I don't see a disadvantage in playing like that. And then you're threatening devastating penetration with rook c2, but this is a strange move. You still have a4, a5, a4. And I think you want to get your king to the center, so it should be the other rook to c8. Yeah. What are you doing, Russian? Uber driver? Bishop AC3. Oh, you want to play Bishop A3 first? Yeah, I thought about that too. It might be good. I don't see why not. But you can play it next. I don't think it's bad here either. You know, as long as we don't trade both rooks. I think that's the really important criteria. You definitely don't want to trade both rooks. Like, one rook is okay. Maybe you're right, though. Maybe we should trade no rooks. I mean, objectively, just get the rook down on the 7th. He would probably play rook d1. Okay, here. He'll try to set up some kind of defense like that. You know, and then we do this. He does something random. We go there. You know, he brings his king to the center. You penetrate down on the 7th. He just, like, barely hangs on, let's say. I mean, it looks pretty bad. Here, maybe, like, takes. You know, white is sort of just, like, hanging on by a thread. I'm not sure if I've played the perfect moves here. But there's some argument to be made. You know, I still think what he did is okay. Because as long as we get one down on the 7th, we're probably winning. This looks winning enough. Rook a c8 before bishop a3. If rook c1, then bishop a3. This is winning. You've got a pawn up, better structure, better minor piece, and more active pieces. It's like so multifaceted. You know, maybe this is a mistake though. I don't want to drop the a7 pawn. I guess I would just play like king here. Just keep going, king e8, king d7. Was rook a1 something? That looks like a little bit of counterplay. Rook takes a7. I don't really like that. The threat of mate like that and rook a8. Yes, he could have gone a5 earlier. Okay, it's a blitz game. So we can't overanalyze it. White missed rook a1. Now he does a5 and e5. I would want to get my king up. Now d5 looks a little weak. Again, I reiterate, it's a blitz game. Knight c3 is not really available. Oops. Was that important? Yeah, it's a blitz game. So, alright, enough is enough. It's obviously over now. Alright, last game. That was a very standard like endgame win against a player playing a passive system that basically sucks for white. Yeah, very standard. Like Mozart said, get the king to b4. Okay, so our last game for today was the following. Guys, we'll be back tomorrow morning with some blitz. If my COVID doesn't kill me. Copy link. Paste. Does my paste work? We're bringing our COVID under control here. You're late again. You just missed your game. Another Caro-Kann? No, it's French. Richard Smith. What just happened here? Oh my god, what did I do? I pressed the hotkey and I turned my screen. I pressed the hotkey on OBS and it made like this giant screen of the stream pop up. Yeah, we always hope that saying works, Arsenal fan, but I'm losing faith sometimes. COVID brethren. Marshall tried or Marshall fried? Oh yeah, I had a student who played this. He's a good player. I literally had never really seen this. Oh, it's also played. No, the guy I was talking about actually played it against the advanced variation. Yeah, I had this one. I had this one advanced player I was working with. He was like 2300 lichess, blitz, strength, and I don't know. He's around the 2200. He was playing this against the advanced variation, which I didn't know this was like a thing. It's kind of weird. Apparently, like Bogdanyan played it a lot. Um, yeah, I like literally never realized like people actually did that. What is, does that have a name? That doesn't. That's just called the advanced variation. All right, so now on 92, well, black can play everything, right? A6, A6, H6, A6, A6. You had the position after what? Bishop F6, GF6, GF6 10 times. Oh my god. Are you serious? That last game? You had that position 10 times. Bjock, check the stream, because if you watch the replay, there was like one game in that opening on lichess on the master database, and I was like, but you see this every day on lichess, and I clicked on it. It was like 50, I guess 60,000. It was 56,000 games. I was that close. Like I was off by only a couple thousand. How many people play that? It's basically like the Bodler attack against the Sicilian or the London. Yeah, very common. Okay, people, last game for today. Thanks, Asterbay, for donating a gift sub to Mozart. Yeah, they think it's good for white. It's equality at best. Very bad line. But now 97. So he's like, well, if you can do it, I can too. This is Richard Smith with white. So we should look at it from white's perspective. Basically, Richard Smith, likely name, plays knight d2. And his opponent is like doing the copycat. Like, if you could put your knight on a stupid square, I can too. Alright. Tiger and Petrosian against Holmov 1980. You know, when the first game pops up, it's like a Navarra game playing white. But let's see who played this with black. Petrosian twice, Berkesh, and Granda Zuniga. And that's basically Krupa, Nagiris, Guillermo Garcia, Ivan Isevich. Yeah, it's just a rare sideline. You know, you gotta ask yourself, I mean, seriously, like at the end of the day, I mean, H6 is a move. Once my teammate played that against, like, our board one 10 years ago for this team I was playing for, played like H6 against Nidich or something. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. In the first Hungarian first league, I was like, that's not a really good idea. Yeah, they play A6 and H6. So what I'm trying to determine is, like, what's worse? You know, like putting your knight on E7 or playing A6 or H6. No, Bijak, I just meant like the early part of the opening, in the early stage. After like ED5, CD5, H3, Bishop takes F3, Queen F3. There's like one master game and 56,000 games on lichess. After like move 5 or move 6. Anyway, 97. Difficult to say like what the point of this is. You know, here. I guess B6 or something. What are we trying to do? Are we playing B6? I'm trying to understand. Is it like Queen D7, B6, one of those things? Like Bishop A6? You can't do that unless the opponent closes the center. You think h6 is the worst? It weakens the king side. Yeah, I mean that would be my fear as well. A6 seems at least like somewhat productive in a French defense, maybe. But I mean, knight e7. It's just kind of hard to understand, like what this move does. I mean, but Arsenal's move is basically like kind of lame. Sorry, dude. I don't want to hurt your feelings. I mean, clearly knight f3 is the most natural. But I mean, your pawn doesn't need protection yet because it's not under attack, and if he takes here, you're going to transpose to a good kind of whatever it is, Rubinstein. You don't need to play c3, is what I'm saying. Obviously, bishop d3 is a trick move, like takes, knight takes, and you've got queen takes, bishop b5 check, surprise. That also protects the pawn indirectly. I mean, I could see black doing like g6 or something, I guess. There. Particularly against bishop d3, right? c3 is not bad, Arsenal. But objectively, I'm kind of wondering, like, what is black going to do after knight f3? What the heck is his move here? I mean, if he does knight g6, we're like off to the races. Definitely. I mean, that's not good. I don't like that for black at all. I just don't think that black has a good move here. Alright, anyway. c3 is not critical. But you're still definitely better. It's still no plan for black. I guess this would be like a slightly better version. Now h4 is not as strong without the support, so you could try to rip this pawn. Even there you probably have compensation. Let's see. Yeah. White is better. Wow. White is better. Not surprising though. The computer Stockfish loves to do these like rook pawn rushes against knight g6. Felgeier has a game with knight f3. But this was your game, okay. Jonathan Mestel, 1978. The Cubans are playing it. It was played by two Cuban. We'll call it the Cuban variations. Two Cuban. And Ian Rogers. The Cuban variation. Bishop e7. No, c5. That's an interesting move. Playable. But I blame if this didn't go well, I blame c3. Knight g8 is tempting. Okay, I mean, his knight on g6 is never going to be, really well placed. Then again, your knight on d2 is not great. So you played ed. We're following these Grandmaster games. The Cubans. Oh, Gildardo has a game. Gildardo passed away 2 years ago. It's been like 2 years now. He has a game from 1981. And Mestel. Mestel must still be alive. Never hear about him. Yeah, the knight maneuver is kind of mysterious, but I mean, white's also got the funky knight. We're just playing now it's just a bad, well, not bad, it's just a weird Tarash. Yeah, queen e2. You might as well play g3 here. Okay, so earlier in the stream we talked about a position where there were like lots of dark square pawns. And I mean, I think the same thing applies here to a certain degree. That we don't really want to trade like our white square bishop. In a sense. For white. It is a key like defender of the white squares. So I'm kind of on the fence here about this. But again, the knight on f4 is really annoying. If you play like bishop e2, you're gonna walk into that at some point. You thought it won a pawn? Oh, you have queen e2 check. But I don't see how you're talking about winning a pawn. Oh, queen e2 check. Alright, yeah, we need to go further. Okay. Bishop e5 check. Bishop d7. Queen e2. You're going to just take this pawn on c5? But you're not winning anything, are you? You're not actually winning anything. I mean, we've got that bishop. So, like, takes, 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 takes. You have a slightly better structure. But we have no pressure whatsoever on the IQP. I mean, it doesn't look that bad for black. I mean, objectively, he might be slightly worse. Queen e2 first. Oh, Uber driver, serious. You're serious about this. The dyslexic queen. Nah. You really think this is a good move? Obviously, black can also play. He can also play knight c6 in that position. It's playable. Dubious according to the computer. Queen e2 first. Alright. So how does this work again? Like queen e7? What's the big deal? We're not winning any pawns, right? I mean, we're just trading and we're getting that ending. Right. No, I don't know. Anyway, bishop e5 check was played. Knight c6 was played. Castles was played. And now bishop e6 was played. Because he's nervous about the open file, but who has time for that? This guy needs to get his king the hell out of there. I would assume that Nilipal's opponent, like, you know, you have to take here. This seems logical to me. I mean, knight takes, bishop d7. What about some way of putting pressure on the f3 pawn? I mean, the d5 pawn. Maybe he should have gone knight b3. Knight f3. Yeah, I mean, it's defensible for black, it looks like. He held a draw, this guy. This 2300 held a GM strength player to a draw. Queen h5. No, it's not LOL. I mean, that might be a good move. It might be a good move in some positions. You know, anyway, like bishop e6 seems really stupid. Maybe it's not that bad. Rook e1. This is definitely bad. I mean, that's outrageously slow. The question is, I mean, what's the best thing to do? Should we play knight b3? Try to go in there and like get that? Takes, he's out. Do we play an opposite color bishop position here where we're like better? We're better here. But how much is it? Not that much. Surprising how resilient black's position. It is surprising how resilient it is. Really feels like you should be able to rip it open. I was even thinking about c4, honestly. I know that seems crazy, but I mean, we have queen a4. It's almost like a Nimzo. This leaves white with only like the most minuscule advantage. Yeah. A queen a4 is a natural try. You gotta make sure that queen gets out of play. Like we had several games like that today. What does the oracle say? Oh no, of course. We should have realized. Queen a4 is pretty good. Of course, it's h4. How could you miss it? With all that action in the center, I mean, how could we miss h4? Classic Stockfish. It loves that H-pawn. Yeah, I mean, I totally missed it too. Normally I would be looking for that, but I was like distracted by the open file that I completely like forgot about this pawn rush on the knight. It supports knight g5, right? And h5 is pretty annoying. You have h5, h6. That's a strong move. Your suggestion of queen a4 is reasonable. This could come across, and if he tries like queen d7, takes, bishop takes, knight b3, I mean the queen can join the game somehow later on. You still have h4, like now. Imagine this position. I mean, if he castles, it's just like h5, knight e7, h6, nice dark squares. I think black is like lost in this position. I think he's like literally lost after h6. Like, what's he gonna do? How is he gonna defend his dark squares on the king side if you come swinging in here with like a gorilla? I mean, it's just a joke. Black's completely lost. Pooh. So you took, take. Yeah, so maybe this queen a4 would be a good move to throw in there. Uber driver, yeah, you remind me of a gorilla. Knight b3, bishop there. Another interesting point. Is it possible that bishop d6? Or even the hyper passive bishop e7 is better? I think this might be worth considering bishop e7. Yeah, seriously. Because if like knight d4, we can probably back up and just like hang on for dear life for black, it looks like. It does look like black is kind of hanging on here. I mean, I would still prefer white. Like, even if you just played b4, maybe it's not enough. Well, you have better than that, maybe. I mean, you still have something. Right, the elephant in the room. The knight g5 is really a big elephant. Maybe you used the wrong elephant. He has queen f6 though. Yeah, I mean, with this move you have a double attack. With knight g5, it's not really a double attack. You have the other one coming though. I mean, clearly you're all over him here. Knight g5, he can castle. Because of this this sort of elephant gambit. Oh. Can you do that? He doesn't have c5 now? What am I missing? Why can't black play c5? Are you serial? You just take. Are you serious? You got that? Oh, that's so rude. Knight takes c6, queen takes a4, knight takes c5 check. It took me forever to see this. And you win that measly pawn. No, you're winning a piece. You're winning a measly piece. Oh, dude. Yeah. So he would have to like take with the pawn and then play king d8. And then you drop a bishop. Yeah. Oh no. So what's he supposed to do now? Just castle. This is the only chance, right? He has to castle and just drop his c6 pawn. And presumably you take with the queen. You're up a clear pawn in the ending here, with some work to do, but obviously not bad. So he did that. Yeah, I mean, it looks like you should be killing him here. But obviously queen a6 feels kind of off-center slightly. Yeah, I kind of wanted something more convincing. I mean, you could still, like, literally still do, like, h4, probably. And still have this insanely strong attack. If castles, you're just, like, ridiculously crushing him. h6 here. I don't like the look of this. This looks like a vacuum. I don't like this at all for black. h4 is probably still the best move. Let's see. It's not in there. Queen a6 is the best move, taking the pawn. It seems so materialistic. How about h4? h4, bishop takes d4, c takes d4, or bishop takes d4, queen d4, castles, h5, c5, CSC, like takes, castles, h5, c5, and he's like hanging on by a thread. You don't have any good lateral squares. You have to play queen d2, knight e7, and then h6, and his dark squares start to just collapse. Black's not in a good place, but he's like barely hanging on here, it looks like. Yeah. Alright. So queen a6 is good, I'm surprised, but you can pop back to d3, I guess. He trades anyway. I mean, I would give serious consideration to taking with the pawn. Even though your structure is bad, you know, it keeps a really good clamp on the squares there. It's not a crazy move. And he gets away. Yeah, now you got technical work to do. Plus 4.2 according to the computer, which is outrageous. Are you serious? Plus 4.2? It's like you're winning a piece or something. It can't be that bad for black. Why is it plus 4.2? That's crazy. Isn't that kind of exaggerated? Like black is down one pawn and his king got to safety. I don't think it's plus 4. I mean, that seems like an outrageous advantage. Yeah, I mean, it's easy for the computer to say with like 18 move depth. And Mozart's got a point. Of course, objectively, it probably is. But yeah, I mean, average player here isn't going to feel that confident. I think it's very important that the opposite-colored bishop's on the board. You know, the a-pawn's nice, but we want to use everything. I feel like white still wants to play maybe some kind of attacking plan, like here, queen g3, and then h4. Basically, when black plays c5, we're going to take here, go into a technical ending with bishop versus knight, and beat him with the outside pawn. There's more than one way to approach this position, but it's good to have a plan. b4 was best, according to the engine. So then if here, we just chop that, it kind of makes you think, all right, let's say b4, h6. I don't know, I'm just making a random move. Now what do we do? Queen d3 is a cheapo there. h6 is a bad move. Let's do rook e8. Okay. Now what? Queen d3, bishop d2, you know, something random. Knight b3. Knight b3, knight c5. I want to make my back rank guarded first. But yeah, that's a good plan. Let's say black. Let's say black does like f6. I don't know. It just takes. I mean, it's winning because the a pawn. It's true. But I think for a human, it's not so easy to convert this. Arsenal played queen d3. Now black can play c5. You have to take, I think, at that point. And I would seriously consider c4. Yeah, this isn't so easy. I mean, black center looks kind of strong. What would Nimzovich do? You know, would Nimzovich play c4 and try to blockade black center here? If d4, this square is really weak. I kind of feel like c4 is a good idea. Arsenal went with direct attack, but I mean the queen is very committed over there. And now bishop e3. And that is a nice pin. Yeah, queens make excellent blockaders. Well, it's nice here. I mean, it has multiple purposes. I don't mind that. I'm curious what the computer wants to do. Man, it just wants to launch that pawn. Obviously, if you play a4, black plays c4, and then the pawn is sort of like pseudo-isolated. That was my concern, you know. This was definitely one of the top moves. I think c4 is a solid choice. Yeah, that's really bad. He leaves his pawns ragged. You could play rook d1. Now you have two connectors. This is really messy, but speaking of blockaders, that's an excellent bishop. White has two connected passed pawns now on the queen side, and the central pawns can be blockaded. Speaking of blockade, f3 might come in handy. Arsenal went for f4. Wow. Some kind of technical blunder. Yeah, I mean, you just set up a blockade here in the center. You should be in pretty good shape. I mean, if you get your queenside pawns moving, get him blockaded in the center. f4 makes a lot of sense. You could have waited and played like f3. Mozart was kind of joking about queens are good blockaders, but it's true. In some respects, it's true. You normally want to blockade with a smaller piece, of course. A knight is the ultimate blockader. But this queen could do a good job here, because it has a lot of scope, you know, on the white squares, particularly. Yeah, rook on e4. You didn't have to play f4. You could just put your pawn on f3, you know. Here, 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 here. Ideally, you want your pawns on white squares, your bishop on dark. Wow. And according to the engine, white has no advantage anymore. That's crazy. Can we challenge me? No. Tomorrow. I'm leaving just now. Rook b8. Thank you very much, though. Tomorrow we're going to do some blitz. Tomorrow at 11 a.m. CET. I'm just finishing up the stream. Queen a4. So Arsenal, I mean, again, I think you should be like cautious with your pawns. If you can't get it through, you know, he's got that solid white square blockade. Queen d3, you know, get everything gelled. Queen a4. Looks like a good move for black. He's on d1. He's on the a2 pawn. And white can't take on e6 because of queen takes d1 check. So optically that looks okay. And Arsenal apparently blundered with queen d3, but a natural move in time pressure most likely. I'm not sure what I would do. I mean, you might have f5 in some positions to open up his king. I mean, I don't see anything concrete with f5. I suppose you could. That's hard. I mean, queen a2 is a serious threat. We can't just ignore that. And this is also invasive. It's a very annoying, invasive move. It's not easy to see what white should do here. Again, queen d3, queen takes a2. I mean, you're better. You know, you're clearly better here. Even if you lost the pawn, you'd still be better. Obviously, you can play a3, just keeping your pawns alive. But now you don't have a blockade. So he can play this really annoying sort of queen e2 move. Or queen c2. No, I mean, f5 sets up some tactics. I just don't really concretely see what it does, what we've got. Yeah, bishop f4, which can't be played because of knight takes. I'm just not sure what we've got, you know. Just doesn't look like anything clear. Computer says that white is like almost winning. I didn't do any tactics puzzles in a while. I'm not seeing it, you know, what white's got here. The engine will probably be like a3 or something. Rook a1 was best. I mean, that's the other like ultra awkward move. Very hard to play that. Yeah, I mean, you want to find something better, more active. Yeah, I probably would have played a3 before rook a1. They're both awkward, man. This is a hard position. Yeah, they're both awkward moves. Now you have f5, and you saw it. Oh, that hurts. Someone didn't see that. Yeah, he was really setting himself up for that. Now he's losing a second pawn, and a big one. Unless he has like rook b6, he should consider trying this. I mean, this looks really, really rough. Rough for black. This isn't gonna help though. So I assume rook b6 here. And now d4 is hanging. Oh. Wait. What? b5? No, there's no time. What do we do after rook b6? Bishop f4. I thought here. fe6, rook takes b4. Yeah, I mean, it's still a little tricky. You're only up one pawn in an ending, and the computer says it's like +4. I mean, obviously one inaccuracy and you lose a big chunk and it might not be a win. You're one blunder away from not winning, basically. It's not that easy after that. But e5 doesn't seem to do anything. It leaves you with a powerful pawn on f5. And now you have a majority on both sides of the board. You had rook e6 or something? Rook e6 like more forcing? I mean, I guess rook e6 is decent. Now it's over. Now it's just over. I mean, you kept all your pawns, and you'll play g4. You can even play g4. It's over. Yeah. Oh, this is sad. Poor guy's knight is on a2. King f1 is like trying to get mated. How can I potentially mate myself in the back rank? I would do h3 here probably, just to double make sure, you know, triple ensure that I'm not going to get mated. On king f1, you could still theoretically get back rank mated. You know, I'm just going to make sure that's not happening. Rook takes e5, not f takes e6. Right. Anyway, good game, man. 32 CPL, not too bad. Looks like you almost let him off the hook there. At one point, yeah. At one point, he was alright here. Wow. When he blundered with queen a4. That's cool, though. I mean, this was his best position, and he was 0.1, so he never really equalized. He got within a millimeter of equalizing. He only got to 0.1. And then blundered. Alright, guys, I gotta go. It's late. It's been a long one. I'm going to be back doing some Blitz tomorrow morning. Thanks, everybody, for watching, tuning in for our subscriber stream. Thanks to the subscribers for obviously being subscribers. And thanks to all you guys for being patient. And my friends here. We will be back tomorrow morning at 11. I'm going to do I guess we'll do a raid of the Mustache Show, Art Vega. So don't anybody go anywhere. Bye-bye.